The decision handed down today in the High Court involving an application by 3 plaintiffs who were looking for an injunction to prevent migrant accommodation, migrant housing on the former Crown Paint site. This is the site in Coolock where there's been a lot of protests there during the last number of months during the summer. The decision though by the High Court, the decision handed down by the High Court judge is absolutely excoriating. That means that, to coin a phrase, the plaintiffs were absolutely schooled by the judgment. Firstly, the judge said that the 3 plaintiffs' documents, legal documents, were awash in meaningless conspiracy theories. He has referred to, criticised the 3 applicants' dangerously provocative allegations, as he refused to halt controversial plans to house migrants in Coolock on the site of a former paint factory. The application was brought by Melissa Kelly, Amanda Farrelly and Alan Croghan, and they are lay litigants. The judge, Mr. Justice David Holland, said the High Court is not just another soapbox or social media outlet or a public protest. Giving his decision, he said that the plaintiff's legal documents were awash in meaningless conspiracy theories. He said that the legal grounds advanced, an alleged breach of the precautionary principle and an alleged breach of our House public participation rights were unstateable and did not meet the threshold for an injunction to prevent a site being used to house migrants. This is the former Crown Paints warehouse. It has been the scene of a lot of protests, violence, fires, considerable unrest during the summer over a proposal to develop 230 prefabricated units to accommodate up to 741 international protection applicants, and more than 20 people have been charged in connection with scenes of disorder at the site. In the judge's judgment, Mr. Justice Holland, he was highly critical of many of the plaintiff's allegations, which he said were a step, quote, down a road which leads to racist xenophobia, discrimination, and history teaches us not infrequently far worse. He said their claims together comprise a vicious narrative by othering and dehumanizing human beings and by categorizing them as, quote, risk of contagion, disease carriers, threats to children, and as criminals. Despite the plaintiffs' protestations to the contrary, their clear intent, according to the judge, is to stir up hatred of migrants. Injunctions, he said, are granted in response to evidence, and there was no evidence before the court of the actuality or risk of genocide, plantation, contagion, or civil war. He also said that there was no evidence whatsoever to support the plaintiff's vicious allegations made against Garda Commissioner Drew Harris. He said there can be no doubt that migration represents a very considerable political challenge worldwide and in Ireland, and it's important that migration is managed in accordance with law. Appreciable numbers of people, he said, have genuine concerns about migration control, and those concerns are to be considered by the Oireachtas. However, he rejected the plaintiff's claim that their particular views can be attributed to the people of Coolock or the Irish people generally. Lawyers for the company leasing and proposing to develop the former Crown Paints warehouse into accommodation for international protection asylum seekers said works on the project will not commence until the site is safe. The court also heard that there's no current contract with the state for the provision of international protection accommodation at the premises, while any potential contract would be subject to preconditions. The 3 plaintiffs, Miss Kelly is a farmer with an address in Ballinasloe, County Galway. Miss Farrelly is a taxi driver living in Coolock. And Mr. Croghan is a resident of Fairfield Estate in Coolock. They represented themselves in their High Court action. Miss Kelly said that she attended several peaceful protests in Coolock while her co-plaintiffs were also involved. Their cases against the site leaseholder and its directors, the Chief Superintendent of Coolock, the Garda Commissioner, Dublin City Council, the Government and Minister for Integration, Roderick O'Gorman, whose department is responsible for the International Protection Accommodation System. The respondents, that's the people who own the or have taken the lease on the former Crown Paints factory, were legally represented. They argued the injunction could not be granted, and clearly the judge agreed. The case will return to court in early December when the court heard the respondents will seek to grant their legal costs. In other words, the respondents will be looking for their costs in December when it comes to the order in relation to costs. So that is a fairly strong judgment by the High Court judge, Mr. Justice David Holland, basically saying that these people were advancing dangerously provocative allegations and their legal documents were awash in meaningless conspiracy theories. Hope you find the video useful. If you do, I'd appreciate it if you hit the thumbs up button down below, and you may be interested in subscribing to my YouTube channel. Thank you very much.